Welcome back to our podcast, the Chatty Ramble. Today's guest is the beautiful Louise Livingstone of the Heart Sense Research Institute. Have I got that right, Louise?
You have. Perfect.
I suddenly had a complete mind blank on what your company was called. So I met Louise last autumn at the Ancient Lands conference that Peter Knight and Sue Wallace put on. And that was down in sort of where was it?
Pusey.
Thank you. Like it's been a long day of interviews and talking to people. I'm sorry. So anyway, Louise had a stall opposite me. What I didn't know, she's one of the guest speakers, and oh my word, she blew my mind. But I couldn't leave without actually buying one of these. So, Louise, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So tell me about creating these because it really spoke to you. It's got lapis on it, which is
Mm,
like, oh my God, that's my stone.
yes.
So tell me about creating these and a bit about you and your work and Heart Sense Institute and how you got there. I've got a million and one questions.
Yeah, great. Well, it's all kind of connected, and it's really lovely being here with you as well, Caroline.
Thank
I
you.
must say you've made me feel really comfortable already, so it's wonderful.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, it was great to meet you at the show last year in Pusey, and I was selling my little stone mini liths. I call them little mini liths,
oh,
little standing
see,
stones.
aren't they beautiful? They just like the energy of this is stunning, by the way.
Well, they're
It's
all
just,
imbued with Reiki,
oh,
Reiki energy. They have Reiki healing energy in there and little crystals, and each one, as I think I said to you at the show, they're all unique,
yeah.
and they all are called something different. They all vibrate a different energy. So some are for activation, some are for peace and calm, bringing a meditative space, a nice calm space into your home. So they're all very different. And they just come to me in conversation with the stone. And that might sound a bit strange.
So one thing that absolutely blew me away when you did your presentation at the conference was that you talk like I talk to dragons,
Yes.
you talk to Gaia, but you also talk to stones. Oh,
Yeah,
excuse me, I've got to go and get a stone. Bear with me. I
that's
took it off my
okay.
desk earlier. So I know to go and get a stone. I've got two actually.
Oh, look at those.
So stones as in crystals or stones as in stones?
Both.
So I told you it's going to be a chatty ramble. We had talked before we came on about what we are going to talk about, and I've gone off a complete tangent because I'm really excited now.
That's
Move my
okay.
coffee.
It's wonderful to be excited because it's kind of infectious, and now I'm getting excited.
So, so do you if talk right words, Caroline, speak.
When
Go on,
shall I start as to when I was a little girl?
go on,
And
please.
yeah, so it basically all started for me when I was about 5 or 6, and I would go down to the farthest southwest corner of Cornwall. So it was a Penwith Peninsula, and something happened to me when I went into that place. You know, my mum and dad, they would drive past St Michael's Mount, and we'd stay in a little B&B, and it was every single summer we'd go down there to the same place, and I would just be enchanted. You know, this magical landscape
Mm.
that was just so pure, so pristine. I didn't know that at the time, I was only 5. But it was like I plunged straight into a conversation with these with the granite there, because the whole landscape is underpinned, its foundation is granite.
Right.
And so we would walk, my mum, my dad, my sister wasn't with us then. She wasn't born until I was about nearly 7. So I would walk along the coastal path with my mum and my dad, and I'd just be chatting. I'd be chatting to the stones, to the stone outcrops. They became my friends.
So what did your folks make of you chatting to rocks?
Well, I think they just thought, well, it's just, I was 5,
Yeah,
5 or 6. So
yeah,
that's kind of what you do when you're little,
yeah,
and you're just in your imagination and you're having a good old chat to the land.
yeah.
But these stones, I know it sounds really silly, but they did become my friends. So I would run up to the stones every year, and it was like I was greeting old friends.
Oh, yeah, that's a real heart,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I don't know what, I can't remember what the conversations were, but there was just this communication, this conversation occurring beyond words that touched my heart, that
Mm.
enchanted me, that made me feel like I was part of something greater. And it was magic, absolute magic. And even when I talk about it, I get goosebumps because there's
Just,
such special memories.
but that is the beauty and the innocence of being little, isn't it? Because we
Yeah,
haven't got shut down by
no,
society and school and having to go down this path and get an education and all the other stuff we
exactly.
now know just cripples our soul. Sorry to interrupt your listening, Caroline here. Just to let you know, I have some workshops coming up. All of them are online, all with the dragons. And the first one is on the 4th of May, which is working with the Beltane dragons. So what ignites you? What's rising for you? How do you want to tap into it? With the dragons, with your own energy. I'll see you on the 4th of May online.
Just keyed straight into a kind of loss for me, because as I grew
Oh,
older,
I can
you know,
feel
and I
that
was
too.
and I was going to visit my stone friends,
Yeah.
and my sister came along as well, and she was little, and we'd be chatting away to the stones, and but something happened. So it became about 8, 9 years old, and I now look back and look at that as though that was a journey where I just sort of left my heart, left my body, and started the slow journey into my mind, into the discursive, rational intellect. And I was told that you can't speak to stones. That's your imagination. Don't be silly. That's very childish. All these things that people say
Oh,
to you. And yet, I knew that wasn't right. In every fibre of my being, I knew that wasn't right. I'd be dragging my mum and dad off to, because I had these books of, ancient sacred places in the UK, and bless them, my mum and dad, they would be like, "Okay, where do you want to go, Louise?" And they'd take me.
I
So
love
they'd take
that.
me to Stonehenge, and I remember, I still remember this. Mum and dad driving to Stonehenge. I was in the back seat. No seat belts at that time either.
Yeah, yeah, I remember those days.
And then we kind of came over the top of this hill, and there was Stonehenge in front of me. And every single hair on my body stood up. I was in awe. It was like, oh my God. And I felt connected to something greater than myself.
Mm.
So this love that's kind of in my heart for stones and their teachings, for crystals, natural stones, stone places, sacred sites, it lives in me. It's alive.
Wow.
Then
Mm.
you're told, no, it's all your imagination. That can't be part of your life anymore. That was what happened with me in my education.
Mm.
Um, and it kind of got shut down. So the world that spoke to me through my heart, made my heart sing, full of joy and everything,
Yeah.
um, gradually became silent.
That, and think it's that's I could, it's like feeling bereft, isn't it?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize that, because
No,
when you're little, you don't realize that's what's happened to you.
no. And that's so sad because, and how true is that of so many children and probably adults
Yeah.
that that's happened to across the world.
Yeah.
I was really, really lucky. My dad sees ghosties. I've had that very sort of open time, and it was never sort of shut down in any way. So I was really
Wow.
lucky.
Yeah,
But you know, I feel blessed that I had that kind of upbringing.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so it was. I used to say to my dad, lay off the gin. He would be describing people walking down the roads like, Dad, there's nobody there. Anyway, so I can't see ghosties. It's important. Um, but yes, so I'm incredibly lucky. But that loss has got to
Mm.
be enormous. Well,
Yeah,
it's enormous with hindsight, isn't it? You don't realize
with
it.
hindsight, yeah,
So
yeah,
what happened?
absolutely. Well, now I know, because you say with hindsight, I look back and my whole journey to where I am now, I
Yeah.
think was because of this loss of this enchanted world, the stones that were speaking to me, the world that was full of song and story and myth. And I started to have heart pain, chest pain. So this was about 9, 10 years of age into my early teens. I would go to the GP, they would check me out. Nothing wrong, nothing at all. Couldn't find anything physical.
Yeah.
Um, and it would be awful because it would happen and I couldn't get a breath in. I just could not get a breath in at all. And it just felt like just my heart was just so sore, so sore. And
Almost like it was
then
breaking.
well, that's what I think it was now. Now I reflect. That's what I think it was.
Oh,
And then when
I
I
can
was
feel that.
18,
Sorry, I can
that's
feel
okay.
that
I
as you're
know.
talking. It's incredible.
So much pain. And then when I was 18, so this is 1990, I'd just done my A levels. I really didn't know who I was, what I was going to go and do. I mean, I got a place at university. I was going to go and do business studies and French. I mean, you can't get more kind of away from speaking stones than that, can you?
No.
And I just wasn't happy. I just thought, I'm not really sure I'm ready for the world that is waiting for me or that I'd been educated to kind of live into. I didn't want to live into that world. I wanted my world that was, full of chatty stones. um, and I contracted viral myocarditis. So this is the August of 1990. So myocarditis is where your heart muscle expands. So it gets inflamed and it expands, and it means that the heart can't pump properly. So it's an inflammation of the heart muscle wall.
Oh,
And I was away with friends at the time celebrating the fact that I got my A levels, and I just felt more and more dreadful. I just felt so ill. And I was in Brecon Beacons. So my friends took me to Abergavenny Hospital. I was there for 5 days, getting steadily worse and worse. And then one night, I think it was about 5 days in, and I went freezing cold. I was in intensive care, and I just said to the nurse, "I'm freezing cold," and that was the last thing I remember. I had a cardiac arrest.
at 18.
18, yeah,
Oh my word.
yeah. Um,
Jesus.
and because by that point, I still hadn't been diagnosed with myocarditis.
Okay.
So then, the next thing I knew, my mum and dad had arrived, and they were next to me by the bed. Then it's all very blurry, but then I remember being put into an ambulance, and then there was a blues and twos all the way back up to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham, where I then spent 3 months in CCU, coronary care unit, and I had 2 further cardiac arrests.
That put paid university and gun doing French, didn't it?
I didn't go,
No, I can
obviously.
see.
Yeah, I didn't go. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I was left with a pacemaker
Okay.
to help my heart to not stop. And then I was on very heavy medication called amiodarone, which prevented my heart from going too fast the other way, in the other direction.
Okay.
And I was prescribed complete bed rest, and because I couldn't put any strain or pressure on my heart whatsoever.
At 18, that is really not much fun, is it? You're out,
No.
life's a party at 18. I remember, God, yeah, I remember being 18 and literally, yeah, party time.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I was in hospital for 3 months. But I mean, according to my cardiologist, I made a miraculous recovery because they were not sure that I was going to pull through.
Really? So what pulled you through? Do you know?
This work, I think it was calling me from the future.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
I
So
know
what
it
happened when
sounds
you
like a
got
big.
out and recovered? And obviously it must have taken you a hell of a long
Well, I
time
took
to
a year
recover.
off, but that was really difficult because I think what I'd got at that point then was post-traumatic stress disorder,
Oh God.
PTSD,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I never really spoke about it with anybody. It was like they patched me up physically,
Yeah, of course.
but I had no faith in my heart, no faith in my body. I kept listening to my heart beating. I was convinced I was going to die.
At
So
18, 19, that's
psychologically,
huge.
it had affected me really deeply. I had no way of processing what had happened to me. And nobody suggested in those days counselling or anything like that. So it was just like, well, you're better now. You're physically better. Off you pop. Which is, that's fine because they did it, wow. I mean, the people that look after me, they did an amazing job. I'm still here.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
psychologically, I was really affected.
Oh, bless you. So what happened next?
Well, I pulled through, I just kept pushing through any anxiety or fear that I had. I went to university the following year,
Okay.
did my degree. So I did my business degree with French. I spent a year living in France, had a lovely time, got some fabulous friends, and, it was a very special time. Um, and I just kind of quietened my heart. Any worry that I had, I just pushed it down further into my body. So I just kept pushing it further down.
Oh, okay.
And carried on, I got married. So I met my first husband. I got married, got a job, was working in marketing. Everything was going really well.
Mm.
And then things started to go sort of wrong in my marriage, and I wasn't happy in my job, and just everything that I'd stuffed down started to come back up again. So this is early 2000s now. And I ended up getting a divorce from my first husband because I just wasn't happy. I then met my second husband, and that was the start of my spiritual awakening, really.
Okay.
When I met him, I knew that there was something more. There was just something that awoken me spiritually. So then I started to learn complementary therapies, Reiki, Indian head massage, crystal therapy. So I managed to connect with my stones again. So crystal therapy, it was amazing. It was wonderful. Um, and just something started to change in my life. But because of the healing of the complementary therapies, because everything had been stuffed down, then
Mm.
everything that had been stuffed down started to come back out.
Yeah.
And it came out in a massive way, in severe anxiety, panic attacks, physical symptoms, because then I started to get atrial fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia, really weird arrhythmias, cardiac arrhythmias, physical arrhythmias that would floor me, just make me faint. I couldn't do my job in the end.
Wow.
I had to leave my job in the end. Had to take a sabbatical. I was working at Birmingham Uni and I was a careers consultant there, and I just had to take time off because I couldn't do the job. I was just so mentally, physically, spiritually unwell, exhausted.
You've had well, a hell of a ride with this, haven't you?
Yeah. And then, one night, so I'm getting to the nub of this now. One night, I was just in such a state. I didn't trust my body.
Yeah.
I knew that there was something coming up I needed to deal with, but I didn't know how to face it because the narrative and the framework that I'd got from my upbringing
Yeah.
couldn't hold what was happening.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I just felt lost. And I just thought, do you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be in the middle of the night waking up and thinking I'm going to die from a panic attack or from the anxiety that I feel. Because that was how heavy it was. And my husband, he
Wow.
didn't know because I kept it from him. I kept all of this from him. And I would force myself to go out and I would panic the entire time that I was out. You know, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my husband or my family at all how bad I was. I didn't even go to the doctors. And I woke up one morning and I just thought, I don't want to be here anymore.
Oh my God. That's huge.
Mm.
That is enormous.
Yeah.
Oh, God. What happened? Something obviously changed because you're
I
still here, which
heard,
is amazing to have you to talk to.
I heard, I heard a voice,
Okay.
and it was my heart. It was my heart basically saying to me, you know, Louise, this is your creation. This conflict, whatever it is that you're experiencing, you know, you can do something about this, but you are killing me. You know, can we work together? And it was like, oh my God, what the hell has just happened to me?
That's huge.
It was massive. Yeah. And again, I didn't know. What do
No.
you do with that?
I'm going Lulu, I think is the thought, isn't it?
But you know what? I knew that I wasn't going to go and pathologize that. Wasn't. I knew it was something that I really needed. It was like there's a poet called William Stafford and there's a poem called The Way It Is, and he talks about this golden thread.
Okay.
And it's actually you never let go of this golden thread, despite what people think, despite how mad people might think you are, because that's what you hold on to. And for me,
Yeah.
that's my golden thread. My heart's my golden thread. And somehow, in amongst all of the mess, all of the anxiety, everything that was going on in my life, I knew that I couldn't let go of that. And that was my way, that was my journey. That was what I had to do.
Wow. So what happened? So you've had this amazing awakening of literally your heart talking to you,
Yeah.
telling you you're killing it, it's killing you.
Yeah.
Uh, what happened?
So remember, this is now, we're talking nearly 20 years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about 10 years passed from that time until the next significant moment, the next
Okay.
significant step that I took,
Okay.
which was in 2012, 2013, I started a master's in holistic science at the Schumacher College.
Okay.
But in those 10 years between that happening to me and me starting the masters, there was things happening.
Yeah.
You know, I would have synchronistic events, books would come off the shelf.
Yeah.
It was like I was being guided to somewhere. I still didn't understand what on earth was going on, what on earth I had to do, why I was going through this.
Yeah.
So it was a long journey,
Yeah.
but I knew, got to keep holding on to that thread, got to keep holding on to that thread. And then one morning, an email popped into my inbox, and it was the Schumacher College, and they were recruiting for the Masters in Holistic Science.
Okay.
And it was just like I had this voice said to me, "You're doing that." And I was
Okay.
like, "Okay." And every fibre of my being moved to make that happen. So me and my husband, we sold our house. This is my second husband now. We sold our home. We sold everything we had so I could do this Masters, so I could follow the calling, the voice.
Oh, what a Jen. Oh, don't you just love men like that? They're just diamond geezers, aren't they?
Yeah. So we sold it. We lived on
Wow.
savings for a while. I mean, you know, and I went and did the Masters in Holistic Science at the Schumacher College. And that was where I understood, oh my God, it's the way that we've been educated that has actually disconnected me from the speaking world.
Yeah. Wow. And the thing is, and I bet you're not alone, anybody listening to this, I know I'd love to know how many people this resonates with because
And
you,
not that I'm vilifying, you know, the discursive intellect, the
Mm.
rational mind, the analytical mind. But if that's the only thing that we are allowed to have in our Western contemporary society,
Yeah.
we are actually narrowing the world to such a degree that it can lead to things like illness, like I had in my life.
Yeah.
Our intuition, our imagination that we're told are childish, that we can't rely on, are irrational,
Yeah.
are actually part of who we are.
Yeah.
They're primordial.
Yeah.
That's how our ancestors used to make sense of the world. The Western
Absolutely.
contemporary framework of knowing has only been around for about 400 years in its current form from the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
So, whilst it's brilliant,
Yeah.
it also needs to be balanced
Agreed.
with these older, deeper, wiser ways of engaging with the world, which we know are true because
Yeah.
we're human beings experiencing the unfolding of the physical world. If we
Absolutely.
abstract ourselves from it,
Yeah.
we're not experiencing it. And the imagination and the intuition and deep inner knowing helps us to experience it.
Of course it does, because it gives us our feelings and our
Exactly.
emotions. And I've got a real strong sort of belief that we wouldn't have today's science without imagination.
No.
We wouldn't have the computers that we're talking on if people didn't have a vision, an imagination of what it could be and what it could do. Just look at the World Wide Web. You
Yeah.
know, how he was told he was bloody stupid. It never happened. Hello. And
So,
that,
what we need to do is reframe
yeah,
everything that we thought was true about the imagination. The
agreed.
imagination, the intuition, they are not fantasy, they're not childish.
No,
They are deep ways that we know our place in the world. So, my work, it basically is just to kind of bring this story to a conclusion so we can have a wider conversation around it, is that I then had a revelation that actually, wow, maybe it's my heart that is the organ of imaginal perception, organ of imagination that connects with the world. Perhaps it's my heart. Maybe this is why my heart's been kind of leading me like it has my whole life. And there are so many scholars that have sort of tiptoed around this kind of understanding in a kind of religious sense. So Henri Corbin, the religious scholar, has actually gone very deeply into the heart as an organ of imaginal perception in a religious context.
wow.
But I took my master's a step further and went on to PhD level and explored the heart as an organ of imaginal perception in relation to everyday life. So not just religion,
Yeah,
not just a religious sensibility, but actually how we engage with each other, how we engage with conflict, how we engage with the world, how we engage with trees, with nature. And so I expanded this idea of the heart as an organ of imaginal perception out of the psychological framework, out of the religious framework, and into a contemporary Western framework that we can apply in our own lives in every single thing that we do.
yeah,
So the heart speaks basically all the time in my world. The imagine, because I live in an imaginal world that is speaking to me all the time. And my discursive rational intellect is a support to all of
yes,
that. There's
yes,
no irrationality there because actually it takes us deeper into deeper meaning making.
yeah,
And it can lead us into a deeper experience of ourselves in relation with the world. It's transformative.
yeah. If you know how to connect with your heart.
Yeah.
And it's about learning to listen and feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
And
what
not
I've learned.
saying that feelings and emotions are just sentimental and you can't trust
No,
them. Because again, that is, I challenge that, that is a misnomer. That's
yeah,
not true. That actually feelings and emotions are actually an incredible compass for us to understand how the living, breathing world is reaching out to us
yeah,
in its invitation towards us.
yeah,
And so the wise, discerning heart can look at how we feel about things and say, that's interesting. Let's have a look at that in more detail. So sentimentality has no place in this heart that I'm speaking about.
no. It
and
is.
speaking from.
I love it. So how did the Heart Centre Research Institute get formed then? What happened there for you to,
So
or
I
Heart Sense,
finished,
sorry.
again, this feels like it was just serendipity, really.
Okay.
So I did my PhD between 2016 and 2019. I finished my PhD in 2019, did a few corrections on that, had my Viva in 2020, and that January 2020. And then in March 2020, we went into lockdown.
Lockdown.
The job that I was supposed to start, which was an admin job, they couldn't take me on. I was due to start the day after lockdown happened. I wasn't on PAYE, so they couldn't pay me. And it was like, oh dear, what am I going to do for a job?
Oops.
How am I going to keep a roof over my head? I'm now a doctor. I've got my PhD. I have no job.
Ah,
Ah. And then my heart said, right, you're going to bring your work from your PhD into being in a way that can be taught, in a way that can be received by people who want to reconnect with their hearts, and that's what you're going to do. So my
wow.
heart and I worked together on developing how I would get the research out of the academy speak and into direct lived human experience, day-to-day human experience speak.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And that's
Amazing.
why it came into being. So it came into being in
Yeah.
June, July 2020. I also set up, co-founded another centre as well with my PhD supervisor and another colleague, Mary Atwood, called the Centre for Myth, Cosmology and the Sacred. So I'm co-founder and co-director of that as well, which was that emerged out of the masters that I taught on when I was doing my PhD at Canterbury Christchurch. So it's now a transformative learning centre. So I co-direct the Centre for Myth, Cosmology and the Sacred, and I direct the Heart Sense Research Institute. Those are the two things that I do, and I've been doing that since 2020.
Wow. So do you still talk to the stones? Obviously, because you've
Yes,
got this.
I
So what did
do.
they say to you? And what did these guys sort of say to you? How do you know what they're saying? Obviously, it's connecting to your heart, so I get that.
So the heart for me, sometimes there are words, but most of the time it's really just this deep knowing, this deep
Okay.
sense of knowing that,
Okay.
okay. So the beautiful dragon that you've just picked up there is saying to me, I'm protective. I'm also peaceful. I can bring peace and calm, but there's a soft power to me. That's what that stone is saying to me.
Yeah.
But there's so much love radiating off that piece for me. It's like I've got goosebumps now.
I love it. I just love this piece.
I can see why.
Beautiful.
So I get a feeling, and then I then translate that into words in the way that I just have
Mm.
with you. But because I spent my whole research journey and conversation with my heart, it's like it happens in my heart and then it comes out as words. Does that make sense? So it's kind
Absolutely.
of automatic.
Yeah, I get it.
I guess you get it as a channel, really, channeling through the dragons in the same
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I get, yeah, I channel because again, mine comes through feelings and knowings.
Yeah.
So I'm not
So the same
particularly,
thing.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
clairaudient or clairvoyant particularly.
Right.
So I'm much more claircognient. But mine's that these guys have taught me to actually listen to my body, listen to your heart.
Yeah.
Where does it feel? Is it in balance? And that's what's
Yeah.
all come from the dragons.
Oh,
So
that's
these are just,
amazing.
yeah.
And now that one, I just get such a sense of clarity. There's like, when
Mm.
I breathe in, I feel like I'm breathing in ice. And it's
Okay.
clearing my nasal passages. And actually, it's really interesting because I've had such a heavy cold, and now my nasal passages have just gone really clean and clear, like I'm breathing in real clear, glacier, fresh air. And it's going straight down into my heart, and like I'm aligned immediately. All my
Love
chakras
it.
aligned.
They're just, aren't they?
Yeah,
Just love them. So, if you were to go back down to Cornwall to where you were as a child,
yeah,
so would you feel would the rocks greet you as like as an old friend again? Do you
yes,
think?
yeah.
Have
So
you
I
tried
did.
it?
Yeah. So I went back. I went back in September. I don't know whether you remember from the talk.
Okay.
And I did I did a walk on my own, which was a massive thing because, being agoraphobic, being so panicked, I had to have people around me all the time, so 20 years ago. I actually decided to have 2 days on my own in Cornwall back in September. And I walked the coastal path and I walked past all the old haunts, all my old friends, and I've got pictures of them. And I was just greeting them all the way along the way that I was walking. And they were gifting me, they were actually gifting me the talk that I was going to give at the place
Oh,
at Pusey where we met. So they
right.
gifted me the words. I
Oh.
still hadn't written it 2 weeks before I was supposed to give the talk. And I said to the stones, I said, look, I'm wanting to be your servant. I'm basically your emissary. Whatever it is you want me to say to the world, give me your words and I will speak them for you. And they gave me the words. And the talk that you heard was them speaking through me. They're my
Wow.
elders, they're my teachers.
Yeah.
And I'm actually giving the same talk again in a few weeks' time at the centre. So if any
Okay.
of your listeners are interested, then I can give the details at the
Yeah,
end.
do let's have it, and we'll put it in the we'll put all your details, contact details, and everything of what you do. We'll let me have the links, and we'll put it in. We'll put it down below as well, so people can find you and come and and discover more about what you do. Because I'm on
Yeah.
your Gaia, am I on your Gaia
You're
course?
on my Heart Sense Level 1 course at the moment,
Yeah,
Caroline. Yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah.
on.
You're learning to speak to all the different hearts that live
That's
within
right.
you and that I connected with during my research journey. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So you talk about Gaia as well. So do you see Gaia? I know
Hmm.
I see Gaia. I see our planet as a beautiful, living, breathing
Yes,
energy.
yeah.
But then I also see Gaia as like an etheric body of the planet. Then if you go down to the heart of Mother Earth, I get greeted by the goddess Gaia. It's
Beautiful.
just incredible. She's, oh
Yeah,
my word, she's amazing.
isn't she?
And so, because you do work with Gaia, and you do a course about Gaia. So, how
Yeah.
does that fit in with your stones and your heart sense? Again, is that it's obviously all heart sensory based?
It's
How does
all
that
connected. Yeah,
is it?
it's all connected with the heart. So the PhD really for me was the turning point in actually really knowing the truth of what I knew when I was a little girl was
Right.
that my heart connects me to the natural world and all that is, and to the transcendent realms, to the divine, and whatever that means to anybody,
Yeah.
whether that's through a religious lens or just a spiritual lens, or even if you don't put a label on it, that there's something more. And
Yeah.
that's wonderful because my heart's taught me that actually whatever it is we experience as human beings, we close that in our own stories and narratives. But it doesn't mean to say that any one person is wrong. They're not. We're all sharing the same kind of archetypal experience, the same foundational experience, but we just clothe it in our own stories and narratives
Yeah.
and experiences. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Because it's our truth. 'Cause it's our journey, isn't it?
Exactly. So, and from that really, going back to your question about Earth and Gaia, they're both intertwined for me. So the Earth is a living, breathing being.
Yeah.
And very often when Earth speaks to me, I know that that's Gaia, that's the living presence of Gaia, and I often go to the heart of the Earth and I'll connect in the center and I'll feel the presence of the goddess Gaia.
You do
So
too.
I do, yeah,
You're
yeah,
the third person I've spoken to that gets it the same way that I do.
yeah,
Oh, how amazing!
yeah, I feel her in my heart.
Yeah.
And, Earth and Gaia, sometimes they're separate.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're connected. Again, it's the words. So it's thinking about the words that we use, how we use them. But actually, my heart's taught me that, you know, that's okay too, because we change. On a moment by moment basis, we're always changing. The words that we're using are changing. The meanings of the words that we're using are sometimes changing too. And that's all okay because we're all co-evolving with this beloved being upon which we have the privilege of living.
Which we need to look after.
Yeah.
Louise, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you
Oh,
so much for joining me.
thank you for having me.
Oh,
It's been
always,
wonderful.
always pleasure. So we'll put all Louise's links below on how you can contact her, find out about her courses and everything else that she's talking about. And you've got courses coming up, haven't you? So obviously we're on the one that I'm on currently, but you've got another 2 or 3 coming up throughout the year. These are all online, aren't they?
They're all on my website, heartsenseresearch.co.uk.
Yeah.
Heart Sense Level 1 that you're on currently is running again in September, and I'm taking bookings for that now.
Yeah.
Also, I have Conversations with Gaia, a 6-week course that's starting in April. There's also Deep Time, so we go into the deep time of the Earth.
Oh.
4.6 billion year journey
Oh.
we take with the Earth in June. So we're doing that in June. That's beautiful. That's
Oh.
really beautiful. And these are
Oh.
all online, by the way. And my talk on the ancient stones of speaking, the one that I referenced a little bit earlier, is happening through the Centre for Myth, Cosmology and the Sacred. I think that's the 19th of March, Tuesday, the 19th of March. But I can give you all the links for that.
Fantastic. So just if timings on this are a bit off and this has gone out after that, is that recorded or is it only in person?
It's recorded.
Oh, it's recorded so people can get it via your
It's
website.
recorded. It's all online. There are all recordings.
Amazing.
So yeah, everything can be bought as a recording if need be.
Amazing. That is really, really good. So we just live in this digital age now. You
I
know, the
know.
pandemic is actually did us a massive favor in many ways, didn't it?
I think it did. I mean, obviously everything has its light and its dark,
Of
but
course.
there's so much that has come out of it, that's
Yeah.
connected us,
Yeah.
across the planet,
Yeah.
that probably couldn't have happened beforehand.
Completely.
So,
I would not be sitting here talking to you if it hadn't been for the pandemic because I had an absolute phobia of talking on camera. It was like it was not
oh,
going to happen. It was my worst nightmare.
oh my goodness me, you're an amazing host. I would
Oh,
never
thank
have
you.
known that. You just made me feel so comfortable and so
Thank you.
welcome, and
Thank you.
I'm delighted you do this.
Yeah, it's thank you. I'll give a little tip to anybody that's terrified of sitting in front of the camera. A friend said to me, go to a magazine or a photograph or whatever, cut it out, put it by your camera and look at that. And you're talking to that person, somebody that you love, trust. You're talking to that person. My God, that was a game changer.
That's so good.
Yeah,
That's
so
a brilliant piece of advice.
that's what I did, and that got me past it. And now I'm quite happy to. And then I also
Amazing.
did. I had to do a series. My publisher asked me to record a series of workshops that were taken from my book, How to Live with Dragons. And would I do like
Yes.
a master class? I think it was 5 or 6 workshops. And would I do a master class basically from the book and working with dragons? And I had to sit in the studio and just record all of those. And I was putting off doing it. But I eventually, and once I did that, everything else just began to flow.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Gosh. Well,
Anyway,
I'd love to just say to your listeners, anyone can reconnect to their heart.
yeah,
All they have to do is just take a breath in and let that breath touch the beautiful heart that they have inside them, and also place the palm, touch the
yeah,
palm over the heart space and just reconnect. And just say to your heart, I'm listening. I'm returning and I'm listening. Guide me. And that's what
yeah.
I do every single morning. It's changed my life.
Amazing. So simple.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. I can't thank you enough. It's been an incredible chat with you. Thank you so much, Louise.
So much love. Thank you.
And I will see you guys all soon in the next podcast.